Jordan, hello. How is it going?
Rob, I've been better, but what's up?
Oh, yeah? Not much, Can't complain,
Okay.
I suppose. What's going on? You seem like you got something on your mind here.
Let me give you some backstory here first.
Sure.
So,
Love backstory.
I updated you the other day about an upgrade in my personal life. I've recently become a grill person. I'm grilling and smoking food now.
Grill guy.
I'm a grill guy. Yeah, I see you're very hungry just by thinking about it. Munching on that apple.
I was trying to quietly eat my apple on mute, but okay.
Okay, calling you out.
Continue.
So I got this pellet smoker, which is slick. Slowly feeds in these wood pellets into this little burn pit in this grill, and it's electric. You plug it in, it ignites it, and you kind of smoke whatever you put on there. We've put a bunch of different stuff on there. It's been fun. However, I'm starting to notice that I don't know how or what exactly I did. Maybe it is the smoke. It's abrasive. Maybe it's that I inhaled ash or something. My lungs have been burning for like 3 days.
Oh.
And my throat is sore.
Wow.
I don't know what caused it. I'm sure it's not great.
You think it's smoker related?
I would
It's not
guess.
just the LA smog or anything like that?
Well, that would have happened already, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know, but my throat is killing me, man. And my lungs are on fire. And I'm pretty sure it's that I inhaled accidentally ash from this smoker when I was trying to clean it out.
Yeah. Well, listen, this is part of being a grill guy.
Yeah.
Okay. This is what you just have to accept. You got to accept all the consequences, physical and otherwise, that are going to come along with that lifestyle if you're going to enjoy the delicious treats.
Yeah.
You got to sacrifice. No one ever said this. It's not fun and games. No one ever said this is easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lifestyle. You have to commit to it. You have to put in the work.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's going to be some challenges.
Exactly.
I will say though, on the treats front, my God, it just takes food to a whole new level. It's crazy. It's been fun. It's been a fun journey, and also just standing there, which in retrospect maybe I shouldn't be standing there, just watching it cook and smelling it, but also or slow cooking it. It's just standing there. For me, I don't drink, but I got a bunch of cans of Arnold Palmer, going a little crazy over here. There's something about it. It's just standing out there in the hot sun, cooking food. It feels great. It's simple. Yeah. I am becoming a boomer dad.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like you're not a dad, but you're kind of embracing the dad lifestyle. You should get those like short cargo shorts that you hike up to the belly button with a golf shirt or whatever.
Oh, dude.
Birkenstocks. And just kind of, yep.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of nod. Just looking at the food, nodding.
Watering the driveway as well. That's one of the other big activities. Just blast in the driveway for some. Why? We don't know. I don't know. It cleans it off.
I will say, my fiance and I also went to Home Depot this weekend to get stuff so we could plant and garden. We're going to start to plant flowers and plants around the yard.
Nice.
And so that was part of our weekend, and that was really nice. And I enjoyed that. Now I'm looking forward to doing more yard work. I want to get a weed whacker now and just start manicuring this like kind of yard that's mostly just dirt because it's LA, but there's weeds. You can kind of prune it a little bit. Yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
I'm all about it.
Sounds great. I love that for
becoming
you.
just a boomer outdoors dad, looking at grill accessories and tools.
Yeah. I can't remember. Are you into golf too? I know you watch it. I love
watching it. I haven't played in a very long time.
That's the ultimate thing you got to get into, the ultimate pastime, the ultimate obsession.
I'm not good at it. And it's so frustrating. Yeah. I think to really enjoy, maybe not, I don't know. Joel Birch, who has been on the show before, he's a big golf guy now. And I'm so mystified why anyone would do that to themselves for recreation. Yeah. It was so frustrating when I played when I was younger.
It's funny because we were talking a little bit on Tuesday about TikTok and like the TikTok algorithm and the kind of things that it kind of exposes you to sometimes. Sometimes you're not even sure why it's doing it. And that's one thing. And I didn't mention this on Tuesday. I was talking about the like male mindset motivation type videos that I was getting, but I get a lot of golf content on TikTok, and I don't totally know why. I don't watch golf. I've never expressed an interest in golf. I don't play golf. I think it's purely just like an age demographic thing. It's like, here's some golf content.
Here's
for
a 40-year-old white guy.
So I get a lot of that.
Odds are he likes golf.
Exactly. So it's trying to get me into that, but I kind of like, I watch it sometimes, but I don't think I'm definitely not going to become like a golf playing guy. I can't see myself sitting around watching golf, but I do engage with some of the golf content that TikTok shows me.
Have you ever watched the Masters?
I have a strong memory of my dad watching the Masters when I was younger, but no, I've never sat around and watched it. Although you've told me before in the past how it's very enjoyable.
It is so enjoyable. A golf broadcast in general is pretty nice to have on if you're just sitting around on a warm day, you got the windows open, you know, Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
It's because it's quiet.
Yeah.
And you have like the stillness, like the calmness in the announcers' voices, the quiet crowds.
It's almost ASMR, yeah.
Borderline, yeah. But the Masters is just another level because that course, most courses are nice. And yes, I know they're tremendous wastes of water and land and resources. I acknowledge that. Just saying, as something to passively consume,
yeah,
the Masters broadcast is really enjoyable because that course is so stunning.
Well, maybe like that's the thing. I'm really embracing becoming a sports guy. I've been watching the NFL this year a lot more. I've been watching like all these NBA playoff games, and it's nice to have these kind of things in the background. You know, it's anything that I can use to just like prevent any thought from entering my mind is good. So I think that could be a good avenue for that. In terms of the golf content that I get on TikTok, there's these guys that they have like a mini golf league. And it's beginning, like I get all those videos and I've gotten totally invested in that and all the different characters and all the different courses that they're always playing at. That's kind of funny too, because it shows how you can easily like, you could take this like fairly silly game and you put this like epic sports music behind it and some commentary and all of a sudden it's like becomes kind of riveting.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I spend a lot of time watching these guys playing mini golf. Maybe we'll see. Well, we'll see about becoming a golf guy. I'm not so sure. I'm not sure it's going to happen. I might give the Masters a chance the next time they roll around.
Yeah, that's next year.
See.
Yeah,
we'll see. What about, have you been watching the hoops? We got Knicks and Sixers tonight.
I've been watching
closeout game.
I've been watching almost every game. This is such a great thing about living on the West Coast.
Yeah,
I've
been falling asleep through a lot of these games.
Yeah, because it wraps up like by 10 o'clock. It's so great.
Yeah, that must be nice.
Yeah, I've been watching most of them. Oddly enough, the only team that I haven't been able to catch a game for through schedule conflicts or not being home is Cleveland. I've watched every other playoff team and most of them, if not all of them, multiple games, but I have not been able to catch a Cleveland game yet. And that series is tight. It could go 7.
Yeah, it seems like it was pretty boring to watch at first, but it's gotten to be a pretty good series. I haven't really been watching much of those games, but I am looking forward to this Knicks and Sixers game. That's the thing. I was watching the game the last one with the kind of miracle finish with Tyrese Maxey scoring 7 points in like 20 seconds to tie up the game, which was, I was like half asleep and then waking up and then falling asleep yeah, I caught that. Looking forward to the closeout game tonight to see what happens, see if they force a game 7 or not. I must say though, like while we're talking about this, we don't need to spend too much longer talking about this, but this whole thing in basketball, when the offensive player gets the defender off their feet and then launches themselves into their body to like get to the foul line, I think we need to stop this. We need to call in the cops, the FBI, whoever it is, whoever monitors this kind of stuff. It's fraudulent. It's unethical. It's unethical hooping. It
has needed addressed for 18 18 years now since the Dwayne Wade Miami Heat run. That was when it first was like, oh, this is going to be a problem. And that just completely changed the way basketball's played in the NBA. And it sucks. Yeah. It fucking sucks. If you leave your feet and you're jumping into somebody, no, that should never be a foul on the person you jump into. I hate that. That's
a non-call, I think.
It's like, see it a lot. You did that yourself. Why? Like, it's bullshit.
It's not your normal shooting motion.
Yes, exactly. I hate that. Yeah. I'm with you. Let's pick. What do we think our finals matchups are going to be?
Gosh, I don't know, because like it's easy to pick the Nuggets because of how good Jokic is and how good Jamal Murray has been. They didn't look, even though they beat the Lakers in 5, they didn't look that great. They managed to pull out all those games.
Yeah, the Lakers led most of the time in in that series.
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit deceptive.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the Nuggets are like, they're obviously the better team and they're really good. And like, they will probably beat Minnesota, but like, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't want to bet against Minnesota and Anthony Edwards right now. Like he's reaching this total other level. He's 22 years old. He looks like he's about to become the whole face of the league, like the big superstar of the league. He's making this kind of big leap right now. So I don't know. I think they're still probably the underdogs in that series, but it would not surprise me at all to see that series either go 6 or 7 or for the Wolves to actually win. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure. And on the East, it probably looks, as much as I hate to admit it, probably looks like it's going to be the Celtics making it through to the finals.
Yep.
I think the safe bet is Celtics Nuggets, but I don't know what's going to happen in this Nuggets T-Wolves series.
Yeah. I'm with you on Minnesota. If I had my pick, if I could just wave a wand, I would advance Minnesota because it's such a fun team to watch. That series overall is going to be great. The Mavs have looked pretty good. I don't know if they're going to, how far they can make it. I also really am curious if this Thunder team is for real. Like, they're very quietly just cruising through, swept New Orleans. They're the number 1 seed and no one's talking about them. I love Shai. I hate the fucking AT&T commercial, but I love Shai. If I have to see that What a Pro Wants ad one more time, I'm going to blow my fucking brains out.
It's actually really interesting being an NBA fan because you're seeing right now the old guard kind of like fading away.
Yep.
LeBron and Durant and Steph Curry, Harden and Paul George looking like they're possibly going to flame out as well. And then you have like Anthony Edwards and SGA in Oklahoma City and Chet Holmgren as well. It's pretty amazing. And it's like, from watching for a long time, you see these guys, really young guys, and you expect them when they get to the playoffs to like stumble a little bit because it's a totally different dynamic. There's way more pressure. There's way more time for the whoever you're playing to like plan against you. You're playing the same team 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And you expect them to kind of falter, and they just have not done that at all. He looks absolutely phenomenal, Shai. So I think that would be a pretty decent pick in the West too. I don't think they're quite ready, but I don't know. Like they've looked really fantastic so far.
I'm so curious, but just because there's that big question mark above them, I can't pick them. I'm gonna go. I want to make it different than yours though. I'm gonna go Minnesota and New York. Just to make it different, because you have Boston. Here's the thing. Okay. Here's what I'm thinking. I feel like there is a possibility, where there's that weird synchronicity in sports where like a city will win the championship in multiple sports. We have these moments where it's like, oh, that's weird. Like this team won, that team won, and they're all in the same city. My hope is that I don't really care if the Knicks win, but I want the Rangers to win the Stanley Cup. And I think that would be a huge moment in sports and sports media for the Knicks and the Rangers to at least make the finals. Having all of this focus on New York would be good for both sports, honestly. And if I was in the industry of rigging games, which the NBA probably is, maybe that's something that would be of interest to them.
That's true. I don't think the Knicks are quite ready.
I don't know, man.
Even though they're pretty
fun.
Enjoyable.
They're so fun.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, I am enjoying watching all these games. It's been very fun so far. I like the first round too because you're just inundated with like so much basketball every single night. It's kind of nice.
Very, yeah.
I've been having fun with that. And it's been a welcome distraction from some of the horrifying things that we're seeing both domestically in Canada and the United States, predominantly, and abroad. Hey, before we get into this next segment, we don't have a guest today. We didn't mention this to anybody, but there's actually no guest. But it is me and Jordan here to talk about this. Do you want to just like transition into the next segment to have a little clean break between the chit chat, the sports talk, and then the more serious discussion?
Yeah, well, we can remind people that we had a premium episode earlier this week with Kat Abugazale, who came on to talk about her experience at the GW, the George Washington University, an American in Georgetown, Howard, and Gallaudet, the collective encampment in D.C., and we also talked a little bit about the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the toasts to decency and the First Amendment that our press elite engaged in this past weekend. And then we talked about Jerry Seinfeld's comments about Seinfeld not being able to be made today. You can subscribe and get access to that show at insurgentspod.com. It's just $5 a month. We are trying to beat Ken Klippenstein in paid subscribers, so help us get that goal to remind him of his place in this world.
We didn't have to quit The Intercept because we were never there. Even.
That's right.
We have even more credibility in a way when you think about it. So yeah, that's a good point. It was a fantastic bonus episode. Please subscribe to the show if you can, insurgentspod.com. And Jordan and I will be back right after this.
Oh, we're going to do the music?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to put the music in?
Yeah, I'm going to put it in.
Okay. And now we act like a long period of time has transpired. We're just reconnecting.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Now, okay. So, hey.
Whoa, hey, back. Man. Good to see you.
Little pause there. That's okay. We're back. And we've got to talk about. There's been some absolutely insane footage coming out of a lot of college campuses right now, but particularly Columbia and UCLA. And I did really want to focus on UCLA, especially because it's just been, I think, really stunning. You see the discrepancy between who's allowed to use violence and who's not. You have this like crazy making black is white, up is down depiction in the media of these encampments and protests as being these like violent thugs and just hotbeds of anti-Semitism, completely at odds with like the actual reality of what's happening. But I think focusing on UCLA is really interesting because like just 2 nights ago now, you had these like pro-Israel thugs basically going into this encampment and physically attacking the encampment, attacking the students with sticks, with barricades, launching fireworks into the encampment. This was like a battle that went on for like quite a while. Absolutely crazy footage. These agitators are able to just like walk away with the cops right there standing by the entire time. These agitators just walk away with zero consequence. And then 24 hours later, you have the LAPD and these like heavily armored riot cops coming back the next night to attack the students who were themselves victims of assaults the previous night. And, you have the cops coming in the very next night to attack this encampment, shooting rubber bullets at people. One student was hit in the head with the rubber bullet and had multiple staples and stitches in his head afterwards. And it's just so shocking, I think, to see this discrepancy in who's allowed to wield violence and who's not. the way that like these clashes, quote unquote clashes, were depicted in the media, or even suggesting like the Israel supporters being totally removed from the equation and saying, oh, these violent protests are getting out of hand. And then you see the cops come in last night and just assault and abuse and arrest these students. And the way that that's being discussed in the media, it's truly, I think, shocking, the way that this is playing out. And then you have Biden himself giving a press conference today where he completely doubles and triples down on this and saying like dissent cannot lead to disorder, and calling these student protesters, many of whom are Jewish, as we've pointed out many times, calling them basically anti-Semites and thugs, and excusing the actions of the law enforcement agencies that went and assaulted them and arrested them over the last couple of nights. It's just, I'm surprised still that I have the capacity to be shocked by this stuff, but I think it's genuinely quite shocking to see.
It is. And just to give people an idea of how entities and figures that we traditionally think as defending the establishment or the status quo or the Democratic Party at large. I mean, there's dissent within the rank and file of like the big D Democratic apparatus. So an example, Patrick Gaspard, who is the president of the Center for American Progress. Despite the name, it over the past several years has been just in lockstep with the Democratic Party, with President Biden, with all of these major Democratic institutions. He tweeted this morning, "I have trespassed in peaceful protest. I have shut down government offices in civil disobedience. I have made the powerful uncomfortable in their routines as I've dissented in peaceful but committed disorder. Those are the American traditions of Thomas Paine, David Thoreau, and Rosa Parks." Just that this was in response. This was after Biden's comments this morning. Responding in that way, I think, illustrates the dissent, the growing dissent within the Democratic rank and file at the Biden administration continuing to double down and double down and double down on their support for Israel, and also the opposition to any activism that calls for change, that calls for a ceasefire, that calls for a different approach to diplomatic relations with Israel. More and more people, we saw in the New York Times a couple weeks ago, a bunch of, I would say dozens of Democratic groups that are not really outspoken about these types of issues, publicly called on the Biden administration to stop arming Israel. I don't know what the campaign is thinking they're going to accomplish and what the administration is thinking they're going to accomplish by continuing down this path when your biggest supporters and backers, institutions that help drive people out to vote for you, are publicly criticizing you on this. It just really boggles my mind that he is just continuing down this path, and no one in his orbit in the White House is saying, whoa, you have to change course.
Yeah, and worth pointing out as well that like not only did young voters help completely prevent them from getting totally wiped out in the midterm elections, like young voters are a big part of this coalition that, got Biden elected in the first place and allowed them to escape the midterms without getting completely demolished. Like not only they're a big constituency in terms of like voting, but they're also the people who are most likely to like knock on doors and join phone banks and canvass and like do all the things that you need to do to win elections. And it seems like Biden's just doing every single thing that he can to completely alienate this generation, doubling down on this law and order rhetoric, demonizing these protesters, and even like banning TikTok. Like they're banning TikTok. They're calling these peaceful encampments, violent anti-Semitic thugs. They're doing everything that they can rather than change their course one iota. And even Biden even said in that press conference today, someone asked him, are you going to reconsider your policy with arming Israel because of what we've been seeing here? And he just says, no. And it's just like amazing. I don't know. I don't even know how we're supposed to react to that. And there's all kinds of scolding already coming out. some of our brave journalists who sit there and post videos of speeches all day, and they seem to think that's some kind of like some sort of activism or something. Starting to lecture and scold people about voting for Biden, but it's just, I don't know, man. It's like they're doing absolutely everything. They're fear mongering about Trump and Trumpism and the idea that some kind of authoritarianism is going to come to the United States. There's going to be this crackdown on free speech, and lecturing people about the need to vote for Biden, while Biden and his enablers are just doing absolutely everything that they can to ensure that that's the outcome that happens. And in fact, engaging in ways that people are fear-mongering about. Like, people are saying you're not even going to be allowed to protest if Trump is elected. Well, what the hell is happening right now at this very second? There's college kids engaged in campus activism that's been going on for decades, occupying buildings, occupying space. Like, it's the exact same tactics as the anti-apartheid protesters or Vietnam War protesters or during the civil rights movement. There's this long legacy of this. And all these, like, this whole generation have kind of like absorbed this kind of protest and absorbed this activism, and they commend it now. And they talk about how the protesters were on the right side of history then. And, the way that they're just demonizing that. And then there's heavily armed and armored, jackbooted thugs coming in to disrupt these encampments. And I went to the encampment at McGill University a couple of days ago. These are kids, college kids, sitting on the grass, doing homework and reading and chanting because they don't want their tuition money being used by these academic institutions. They've got very clear and very reasonable demands, and they don't want their tuition money being used to subsidize a genocidal mass murder campaign that's killed around 40,000 people and has destroyed all of Gaza, basically. And we've got riot cops shooting these kids with rubber bullets, assaulting them, arresting them. And then people really have the audacity to say, if Trump is elected, people are not going to have free speech. They're not going to be able to protest. It makes me feel totally crazy. And you got to wonder, like, what needs to happen for some of these folks to realize that this scary nightmare future that they're trying to freak people out about is literally happening right in front of them. And it's their guy. It's their guy that's at the helm of it. It's just crazy.
Can't be clear enough how these protests started. It was just college kids sitting on campus. Sorry. Sometimes they had tents. They were just camping out. Where I went to college, there was an event every year where the Greek life community would do that for one night to raise awareness about homelessness. It's not a risk. I mean, that's kind of a pathetic effort, but sure, I guess they're trying. Like, the idea that this was something that needed to be met with state violence, and like you laid out at the beginning, the intensity with which we saw the police respond across the board in multiple cities, on multiple campuses, assaulting students, assaulting faculty, assaulting campus staff. They went in there with an intent to cause harm at the behest of university presidents or mayors. We're now seeing reports that an NYPD officer fired a gun in Hamilton Hall at Columbia the other night. And like you say, there's a history of this style of protest. There absolutely is. And there's a history of people occupying that building specifically at Columbia for decades in relation to anti-war protests and efforts. So this idea that these are just total outlier radicals operating on the fringes isn't true. It's what people want you to think because they aren't willing to be clear about the reality of this war, the U.S. involvement in it, and the horrors that the U.S. has been responsible in inflicting in Gaza.
Yeah, and I think the most grotesque thing of all is the folks that are trying to justify what's happening by making this analogy towards the right and suggesting like these anti-genocide college students. They're just like the Charlottesville fascists. It's just like January 6th. I've seen that as well. Well, if we were against January 6th, we got to be against these college students occupying this building as well. Well, no, actually, that's completely different. It's totally different when you have a bunch of people storming the Capitol building in the United States government in an effort to like overturn the election results or stop election results from happening, to install the like game show host that they think is their friend as the president of the United States, versus college students that are occupying buildings on their campus because they're opposed to a U.S. sponsored genocidal mass murder campaign that's killed tens of thousands of little kids. No, these are not remotely comparable incidents. And if you want to make some kind of analogy about Charlottesville and the torch wielding Charlottesville protesters, they agree, they're way more in line with supporters of Israel than these college kids are. Like they're the same people are sitting here talking about and fear mongering about Western civilization. Now Western civilization is under threat from these kinds of like swarthy hordes and stuff like that. They're the ones that are obsessed with this kind of blood and soil nationalism. That's what Zionism is. You know, they have way more in common with those folks than these anti-genocide college kids. It's sick the way that like people have wielded these kind of analogies. And I think the most horrifying thing was Dana Bash the other night on CNN. Did you see that segment?
Yeah.
Like, it really is like not just like a mild distortion or a lie or fake news. It's a total inversion of reality when you have Dana Bash on CNN basically calling these kids Nazis, basically saying like, this is the climate that we haven't seen since the 1930s in Germany, for the totally wrong reasons. You know, it's really disgusting, you know, for these kids who are supporting very bravely, in my opinion, putting their bodies on the line, their health and safety, their security, their futures. Kids are getting like suspended and expelled. They're getting degrees revoked. It's not really good for a career move to be part of this movement. They're putting a lot of skin in the game here. They're putting a lot on the line to try and do whatever they can to coerce these academic institutions and the U.S. government from participating in this absolute horror. And then you have Dana Bash on CNN basically just being like calling them Nazis, basically making that suggestion and taking every completely exaggerated claim of like pro-Israel students or anyone else feeling unsafe or uncomfortable, or I'm not able to get to class, or I'm not doing this, and taking this as at total face value and using that as an example and a way to smear these college kids, all while totally ignoring the nonstop slaughter that's happening in Gaza, which the United States government has fully supported and these college kids are against. I watched the segment and I was kind of blown away by it, but I think I had to like think about it for a while and see other people react to it. It really occurred to me how completely grotesque this segment was. It's really unbelievable.
Yeah. The media in parroting this, it's violent. These are violent protests. That narrative has been really disgusting because again, it got violent when the police showed up. And in the case of UCLA, it got extremely violent when pro-Israel agitators showed up, shooting on fireworks, attacking people. People sitting on campus before this, that's not violent. 99% of these protests were non-violent. The idea that the 1% of altercations that we're seeing like across the board shown on TV because the police showed up or agitators showed up, that does nothing in my mind to condemn the people who are sitting there peacefully. Their cause is just and noble and right, and they are risking life and limb to do this. It's the right thing to do. It's been extremely disgusting to see the media carry this narrative.
Yeah, and again, just this idea of like, oh, it's not peaceful when you're occupying buildings, when you're breaking windows. You know, it's not peaceful. We talked about it the other day. We had a whole news cycle about the woman that got her eye gouged out by a flag, and we saw what the actual reality of that was. And now we've got UCLA students getting their skulls cracked by the LAPD, and that doesn't count as violence. When Biden says, we can't allow dissent to become disorder. But like, you look at this scene and the disorder is being caused by violent thugs coming in and assaulting the students, whether it's pro-Israel brown shirts the 2 nights ago or the LAPD the previous night. And this is also a total mirror, by the way, of what we saw during the George Floyd protests as well, which were also demonized and called violent riots, and all the same kind of rhetoric and language was used. It was a little bit different because there was a guy on the red team in the White House at that time, so people were a little different with some of the rhetoric. But I mean, you captured a lot of that police violence that took place and compiled that during those George Floyd protests, and it was the same thing time and time again. Peaceful protests that got escalated into violent standoffs and confrontations by heavily armed riot cops coming in and turning them into massive battle royales. Like, that was like every single night. And we had this nonstop stream of footage for months of cops going in and assaulting people, brutalizing people, and it's the same thing. And that when we talk about it today, when elites talk about it today, it's described as these like violent riots that were taking place, but night after night, those were police riots that were happening. And that's exactly what we're seeing on campuses like UCLA and elsewhere.
Insane. We heard from, I think he told this story on the show, Tom Williams from Straight from the Path. They have a song on their most recent album that in part talks about his experience going to a protest in Nashville during that time. Everyone's out marching, demonstrating. People have drums, whatever. They got signs. Police show up and just started shooting tear gas. Like, I mean, they had to scramble out of there because his wife was pregnant at the time. My fiance went to she was living in LA at the time. Went to a protest, got shot with a rubber bullet by LAPD, and they were just standing there. I mean, that's just a couple examples, but we've seen. And I'm sure many of you know people who have been assaulted by the police during that period. And what I compiled in that moment was countless videos over and over and over again of people just demonstrating peacefully and a cop just running up and shoving them, or running their car into groups of people, or trampling them with a horse, or beating them with sticks, like nightsticks. It was disproportionate to what the crowds were doing. They go out there to agitate because they know they're not going to face any repercussions. So why would they worry about exercising restraint when they're going up against a bunch of powerless college kids, and the university president and the mayor are asking you to go basically crack skulls? That's why you have now a cop that fired a gun in Hamilton Hall. This is insane.
It just feels like this is a ruling class that's just totally in panic mode right now because they've lost control of this narrative, especially about Israel, that they've been really trying to carefully keep very strict control over for a very long time. And they've just completely lost this upcoming generation. They've lost it. And it feels like it almost seems like they're acting totally irrationally, busting up. And they feel seriously like they can just bust up these protests or arrest enough people or ban TikTok or whatever it is. And they're going to be able to kind of reassert control over this thing. Not only that, but like they're passing laws right now that's like enshrining in legal terms that criticism of Israel is like a form of hate speech. Like, that's being debated and discussed and passing the House in the United States right now. Like, it's very well get to a point not long from now that it might actually be subject to like legal consequences for saying things about Israel, stating basic facts about Israel and what they do and what the whole project's about. And it's like, this is not going to have the effect of calming this down and making people love and respect Israel. It's not going to bring this generation back into line. All this is doing is just radicalizing these kids even more. And just listen to what some of these UCLA students that went through this last night and what they're saying. They're more determined than ever to continue protesting, to continue doing whatever they can to stop this. And every single thing that the state and the powerful are doing right now to destroy this movement is just throwing gasoline on the fire and making it even more radical and militant. And it really does seem like we're headed towards another summer similar to the summer of 2020. And, it's really hard to know how that's going to go. But from being around these students personally, from, listening to what they have to say, it's very clear that, they're not going to change their minds about this if you just beat them hard enough with batons or arrest enough of them. And I've got to say too, like, I'm really in awe of what these students are doing. I think it's really brave. And for all the ways that these kind of like social movements that involve young people are kind of delegitimized, oh, these are just like entitled college kids. They don't even know why they're there. They're just doing it because it's the cool thing to do. All the ways that this is just kind of is used to kind of like delegitimize it. You go and listen to what these kids are saying. They're extremely eloquent. They're extremely well informed. They're becoming more and more radicalized by the day by the way that they're being treated by the university administrations, by local police departments, by the federal government. And this is like, you can't just put this toothpaste back in the tube, as the saying goes. It really seems like everything that has happened over the last couple of weeks has ensured that we're going to see a lot more, even more radical and militant protests and movements that are going to be continuing indefinitely as this summer rolls on. So again, I don't want to predict too much about this, but it does seem a little bit like we're on the verge of another summer similar to what we saw 4 years ago.
I'm curious what's going to happen on campuses when the semester ends. They say they're going to stay. We'll see. I think we'll especially see at schools where students live. Commuter colleges, I don't think we're going to see much action. But if they are there, and especially if they are there for the summer for like internships or just they live there, even in the off months, we might see more action, or they might move to a different location in those cities. What I'm more curious about rather is what we're going to see at the DNC. That's going to be really fascinating. We could see
in Chicago. Yeah. Some interesting historical parallels there. Huh?
Absolutely. I'm very, very curious what it's going to look like in Chicago.
Me too. And as of now, I am planning on being there in Chicago for the DNC because I'm a serious journalist and I am pretty interested in being there personally to see how it plays out. I don't know if I really need to be inside the actual convention.
No.
I'm not that much of a sicko, but I am planning on being in Chicago for the DNC. So who knows? I don't know. I'm interested in what's going to happen, and maybe we'll even get to do some live content.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That'd
be interesting. It'll be really interesting. I'm sure they're going to have protocols and preparations to try to block any protests. Maybe a free speech zone. I'm sure the city will work with the DNC to mitigate any civil disobedience or direct action or anything. But yeah, the current plan is that Rob and I are going to go to cover it and do some live recording there.
Well, it should be something else. I don't really know what to expect, but yeah, if you're a listener of the show and you're there, we can do some kind of a thing, some kind of a meetup, something. It would be cool. Is there anything else before we sign off? Is there any fun stuff we want to leave it on before we say goodbye?
I don't.
It's hard to pivot back to fun.
We started with the fun, the sports.
That's true.
The fun was the fun. You already got your fun. If you're still listening for fun, turn the show off.
Yeah. You know how the end of these shows go. You're supposed to feel sad and upset. Although to be honest, here's a hopeful note to leave it on. Like, it really does. I find it very inspiring to see this. Like, I thought it was really cool to like be at one of these encampments. I really appreciated being able to spend some time there and speak to some of the people that are involved in this movement. You know, sometimes we lean a little too heavily on this idea that, the younger generation is going to save us. They're going to bail us out. And I don't necessarily believe that, but seeing the dedication and the principles that some of these students have and the way that they're able to, and they're willing to put like I was saying, their own health and safety, their own security, and their own futures on the line because of this horrible crime that the United States government is currently helping to perpetrate. That does fill me with a lot of optimism and hope for the future. And it's really inspiring to be around. And if there's one of these encampments in your city, I really recommend you go while it's still there and show up and be you can be an outside agitator, and go and see what these students are up to and hear what they have to say. Cause it will, with all the horror and the violence and the terrible things that we've been seeing over the last 7 months now, it's really kind of an antidote to that, to see this young generation really come together to try and put a stop to it.
That's a good note to leave it on.
Yeah, we got there. Good. Well, thanks for listening, folks. We will be back next week. This has been Rob and Jordan. Please subscribe to the podcast, insurgentspod.com, and we'll talk to you soon.